Every small town has its secrets, but some are buried so deep that even the dirt itself tries to forget them. Crystal City might have seemed like one of those towns, where drugs, debt, crime, corrupt cops, and neighbors with their own dark motives were just part of daily life. But Puebla's his old town. That makes living in Crystal City look like a walk in the park. People like to believe that running to a new place will fix everything. But sometimes, the trouble you're running from isn't the worst part. Sometimes, the place you go is already waiting. And once you step inside, there's no guarantee you'll come back the same, or at all. This twisted tale begins in Marcos's house, a place that once felt like home, but now just echoed with emptiness. 3 months earlier, Marcos's wife, the mother of Ricky and Samantha, had just upped and left without warning. No explanation, no goodbye, just a note on the kitchen table. And she took a suitcase full of clothes with her. Since then, the bills stacked up like tombstones. The rent was due in a week, and there was no money. Rumor has it, Maria left for a better life. You see, the Manuel family was known for their dirty deeds across the small city. The family seemed to have the moral compass of a maggot. That night, Marcos was out of town, wheeling and dealing with the other common low-level drug dealers he knew, searching for any work he could find, leaving the house to its ghosts. Ricky and Samantha were at a party nearby. Given their reputation, they were surrounded by the usual crowd of tweakers and scumbags, all of them trying to outrun their shadows with cheap beer and louder music. The air was thick with smoke and desperation. Samantha had been searching for her boyfriend Trevor for a good part of the night. When she finally found him outside behind the porch, her stomach dropped. There he was, pressed against some random girl, lips locked, hands woven in her hair. Her heart didn't just break, it shattered into 1,000 pieces. Tears welled up, but she fought them back, feeling the burn of betrayal all the way to her core. When Ricky saw what was happening, his blood went from hot to explosive in about 2 seconds flat. Without thinking, he stormed over, shouting at Trevor. Words turned to shoves, shoves turned to fists, and suddenly everyone was watching as Ricky laid into Trevor. Punches flying in the dirt while the crowd either cheered or jeered like vultures at a carcass. But underneath all that noise, something darker was stirring. This wasn't just a fight. It was the beginning of something terrible. Trevor, humiliated and pissed beyond reason, came back with his crew. They weren't there to talk. They were there for revenge. That night, they broke into Marcos's house while everyone was passed out or too drunk to fight back. Guns, threats, fists. They tore through everything valuable, taking drugs, money, even the little bit of fentanyl they were selling to make ends meet. The walls echoed with threats and the sound of things breaking. When Ricky and Samantha woke up the next morning, with no money, no drugs to sell, and rent coming up, they had no choice. They'd heard whispers about pills across the border, cheap, easy to get in Mexico, and suddenly it sounded like their only way out. They knew Marcos would be on board. And so, in the darkness of that morning, they gathered what little they had left. Their only ride was Marcos's old Cadillac, that beat-up beast that always smelled like burning oil and broken dreams. The engine roared to life with a rough cough, sounding as tired as they felt. With trembling hands and hearts full of desperation, they decided to make the trip to Mexico. But none of them knew what kind of darkness was really waiting for them on the other side of that border. The Cadillac's engine whined as they headed south, the three of them stuffed into worn leather seats that had seen better decades. Ricky drove with white knuckles, Samantha stared out the window at nothing, and Marcos sat in the back, eager to get the trip over with. They crossed into Mexico as the sun began to set. The landscape changed gradually. Dirt roads grew rougher, buildings more weathered, and the air felt thicker, heavier, like they were driving into something that didn't want visitors. That's when Trevor showed up. He was standing at the side of the road, looking like he hadn't slept. When Ricky stopped, they found out Marcos and Trevor had been texting, and Trevor convinced Marcos to meet him for a chance to make things right. Trevor spilled everything. He felt horrible. He never meant for his friends to go that far. He was sorry. He pulled out his savings, every dollar he had, and offered it to them. Said he wanted to help pay for the trip, to make things right. At first, Ricky wasn't feeling it, but the truth was, they needed that money bad. Samantha's heart was still broken, but she was never one for holding grudges. Too easy to forgive, too quick to see the good in people who probably didn't deserve it. So Trevor climbed in, and suddenly their desperate escape mission had an unwelcome fourth passenger. As they drove deeper into Mexico, the air grew stranger. Shadows at the edge of their vision that disappeared when they looked directly at them. Whispers on the wind that sounded like words, but dissolved before they could understand them. Samantha kept rubbing her arms, complaining about goosebumps that wouldn't go away, while Ricky found himself glancing in the rearview mirror more often than necessary. They stopped at a gas station, a lonely flicker of light in the middle of nowhere. That's when Samantha lost it. She begged them to turn back, said something felt wrong, like the place was watching them. Ricky and Marcos dismissed her fears as paranoia, but Trevor was quiet, his eyes darting around like he felt it too. That's when the first real sign appeared. A flat tire. Silent. Sudden. Like the air had just decided to escape all at once. No warning. No sound. With no other choice, they limped into a nearby truck stop, hoping for a miracle. An old man was there. He was weathered from the years, and he barely spoke English, but his hands told them everything they needed to know. Their car was dead. Not just the tire, but something deeper. They were stranded. The old man at the truck stop pointed to a younger Mexican guy named Chava, who offered them a ride in his truck. There was something off about Chava, the way he smiled to himself, the strange tune he kept whistling under his breath. But they were desperate. With their Cadillac dead and miles of empty road ahead, they climbed into his truck. Samantha's instincts screamed at her that this was wrong. The Chava's laughter echoed strangely in the quiet night. But what choice did they have? As they drove deeper into the Mexican countryside, the landscape transformed. Buildings grew darker, more dilapidated, like they'd been abandoned mid-life. Shadows stretched long and unnatural, twisting across the ground like they were alive. Moonlight revealed broken windows, overgrown streets, and a silence so complete it felt deafening. Java pulled over at what looked like the edge of a ghost town. "Aquí," he said softly,
Aquí.
pointing to deserted streets that seemed to swallow the light. They stepped out into cold air that bit through their clothes. The town was eerily quiet. No dogs barking, no music playing. Just the sound of wind rattling through broken shutters like skeleton fingers. Samantha's skin crawled as she saw a shadow flicker at the corner of her eye. When she turned to look, nothing was there. Just empty streets and the ghostly echoes of a place that had been dead for a very long time. They wandered through abandoned homes with furniture still sitting like frozen families. Overgrown courtyards where weeds had swallowed everything. And streets that seemed to stretch forever into darkness. Each step felt heavier than the last, and the air grew colder, thicker with an unseen presence that felt like it was pressing in from all sides. Strange symbols appeared etched into the walls, faint but deliberate, like someone had been trying to warn others away. The air seemed to hum with a dark energy, as if the town itself was alive, watching, waiting. It seemed like a bad dream. Suddenly, a low moan echoed somewhere in the distance. The whispers they'd been hearing all night grew louder, more insistent, speaking in words they couldn't quite understand but somehow felt in their bones. Shadows darted at the edge of their vision, just beyond sight. Samantha clutched Trevor's arm, her instincts telling her to run, but they kept moving deeper into the maze-like streets. Then Ricky noticed it first. Every road they took led them back to the same spot. No matter which direction they chose, the streets twisted and looped, trapping them in an endless, inescapable nightmare. The whispers turned into screams, muffled and distant, then loud enough to make their ears ring. Shadows coalesced into figures that looked almost human, but moved with jerky, unnatural motions that made their stomachs turn. It became terrifyingly clear. This town wasn't just abandoned. It was alive. It was waiting. And whatever haunted Puebla's old town wasn't merely restless. It was aware of visitors. Panic began to set in as they realized they were truly trapped in a place that refused to let them go. And somewhere, lurking in the darkness that was growing thicker with every passing minute, the true horror was only just beginning. They could not believe this was actually happening to them. They pushed deeper into the heart of Puebla's old town, the shadows thickening around them like a living force. The streets twisted and folded, trapping them in a labyrinth of darkness that seemed to breathe and pulse with an unnatural, static energy. Every step they took felt like wading through molasses, each motion sluggish, distorted. Suddenly, their senses began to fray. The world around them flickered, glimpses of reality slipping through like shattered glass. Grim, twisted visages transformed into wicked, demented visages, visions so vile and wicked that their minds rebelled against them, and screams dissolved into a cacophony of torment that hammered against their brains. They tried to scream back, tried to escape, but their bodies refused. Their minds were caught in a relentless loop, slammed again and again into the sharp, jagged edges of madness. Every time they thought they found an exit, the world reset. A crushing wave of darkness slammed their thoughts into chaos. They were imprisoned in a nightmare that refused to end, their consciousness unraveling with every scream that never left their lips. In this twisted nightmare, they weren't even sure what was real anymore. Visions blurred, and they saw themselves frozen, screaming, their heads shattered from their bodies, lying broken in the same cursed streets. All of them deceased, mutilated, their minds torn apart, caught in an unending cycle of horror that left them trembling, broken, unable to distinguish dream from reality. And then, amidst the chaos of their fractured minds, something strange began to happen. The more demented and distorted their thoughts became, more broken and insane, the more clearly they seemed to see something else. Faintly at first, but then with terrifying clarity, they saw the townspeople, men and women, staring at them with hollow eyes, watching from the shadows, twisted in silent mockery. But in their brief moments of clarity, just as the torment threatened to drown them completely, the townspeople vanished, disappearing as if they only existed within the cursed minds of the visitors. The townspeople were illusions, hallucinations, phantoms that flickered in and out of existence, only alive in the fractured minds of those trapped in the nightmare. And the shadows stretched and writhed, forming faint figures with hollow eyes that seemed to peer directly into their souls. The air grew colder still, and a strange, heavy weight pressed down on their chests, making each breath labored and painful. Suddenly, everything went silent. They awoke, disoriented, trembling, lying in a cold, desolate field. The nightmare had ended, but the trauma lingered like a poison. Their minds were shattered, their spirits broken, trembling from the horrors they had just endured. They looked at each other, wide-eyed and pale, unable to speak, haunted by the visions that still haunted their minds. As they slowly sat up, blinking into the daylight, Chava appeared, driving them out of the town with a sinister whistle and a disturbing laugh. Samantha and Trevor, still trembling, started sharing their dreams, strange, wicked dreams that eerily mirrored each other, their voices trembling with fear. They realized, too late, that what they saw, it was a warning. A curse that had trapped them in that hellish village. Just as they reached the outskirts, they looked ahead and froze. Surrounding the car was a police barricade, flashing lights illuminating a grim scene. Bodies sprawled on the ground, blood pooling in the dirt, their heads grotesquely torn from their bodies. The horrific realization struck like lightning. They were looking at their own corpses. In the car, they were still alive, completely unaware of the carnage outside. The police could see the bodies, but the living, they were caught in the curse, trapped in that nightmare. Their souls lost to the endless, twisted loop. Chava's whistle pierced the air and he laughed, an echo that faded into the darkness. The question is, who are the townspeople? Or better yet, are they real?